To seek excitement, two couples decided to venture into a remote jungle for an unforgettable vacation. Led by their guide, Nick, they embarked on the long-anticipated expedition. Though the surroundings seemed peaceful on the surface, the forest teemed with hidden and mysterious creatures. Still, as long as they followed Nick's instructions, they would remain safe. After all, Nick's family had worked as jungle guides for 3 generations. However, in recent years, there had been frequent reports of people going missing in the forest. One case involved a young couple who ignored warning signs and ventured into a restricted area, while several workers also vanished mysteriously near a logging site. Despite days of search efforts, the rescue teams returned empty-handed. Only some human waste was found deep within the jungle, and disturbingly, it contained large amounts of crushed human bone fragments. Many believed they had fallen victim to the legendary Cannibal tribe. While the 2 men in the group dismissed such claims as ridiculous, only Maya remained uneasy. Fortunately, with Nick's years of experience, he reassured everyone that as long as they didn't trespass on the tribe's territory or harm the wildlife they relied on, the cannibals would not pose a threat. In fact, the tribe's habitat had recently been placed under government protection, and deforestation was now strictly prohibited. As they ventured deeper into the forest, the scenery grew increasingly breathtaking, and nothing seemed as frightening as Nick had warned. AJ gradually let his guard down and began splashing water at Richie, starting a playful water fight, while the 2 women fully enjoyed the moment, but none of them realized the dangers that lurked all around. After hours of paddling, they were exhausted and needed to find a suitable campsite before nightfall. Nick not only led the way, but also taught them how to properly hang their hammocks for a more comfortable sleep. As darkness fell, strange and eerie calls echoed through the woods, causing Maya to grow anxious. Even Nick couldn't identify the source of the sounds. After all, in this isolated forest, they probably hadn't even heard of half the creatures living there. Thanks to Nick's calming presence, Maya eventually relaxed, especially as he shared numerous stories about the jungle and the customs of the legendary cannibal tribes. Though chilling, Nick's storytelling opened Maya's eyes and taught her much. However, her boyfriend refused to believe anything Nick said.
Опять рассказываете страшилки? Это тоже часть похода? Сидеть возле костра и пугать туристов до усрачки?
Everyone lay in their hammocks, ready to enjoy their first night in the wild, exchanging jokes and bidding each other good night.
И вам, каннибалы.
Доброй ночи.
Luckily, nothing strange happened during the night, but the next morning, Nick discovered that one of their kayaks was missing. When the group regrouped, they realized that Richie must have secretly taken off while everyone was asleep. His reckless move infuriated Nick. If Richie accidentally crossed into the cannibal tribe's land, the consequences could be catastrophic. Their best option now was to pack up quickly and hope to catch up with him in time. They jumped in the remaining kayaks and rushed deeper into the forest, knowing that every second could determine Richie's fate. They scouted every possible area where Richie might have gone, but even after reaching the rapids, there was still no sign of him. Jasmine reasoned that since it was Richie's first time kayaking, he likely wouldn't brave the rapids and suggested taking a different route. But Nick firmly opposed this, warning that the alternative path led straight into cannibal territory. He didn't want to risk everyone's lives.
Позволь, я спрошу. Ты их сам видел? Нет? А почему? Потому что их не существует.
Делайте, что хотите.
Нет!
Я продырявлю эту посудину раньше, чем ты нас бросишь.
Мы не можем бросить Ричи.
Найдем его и сразу же уйдем.
Да.
Still, under pressure from the group, Nick reluctantly led them into the forbidden zone, an error that would ultimately lead to tragedy. AJ, in a state of panic, rushed ahead without sensing the growing danger around them. Just as Jasmine predicted, a few hours later they found the missing kayak. But Richie was nowhere to be seen. They soon discovered his life jacket and an empty waterproof bag that had once held several of their phones. That was when they realized something was terribly wrong.
У вас 1 час. Ищите хоть всю ночь, но если не вернетесь через час, я ухожу.
Nick stayed behind to guard the kayaks while the other 3 went to search for Richie nearby. They kept their voices low, calling his name carefully, afraid of attracting dangerous creatures. As they ventured further, Ajay sensed a chilling, oppressive atmosphere surrounding them, as if countless unseen eyes were watching. He quickly grabbed a stick to defend himself, and the other 2 held their breath, too terrified to make a sound. Meanwhile, Nick began to notice strange noises nearby. Fearing it could be members of the cannibal tribe or his returning companions struggling to find him, he gripped his knife and cautiously moved toward the source. At first, everything seemed within expectation, yet something felt disturbingly off. Moments later, Nick stumbled upon a chilling sight. After a brief hesitation, he summoned the courage to step closer, only to find several scarecrows dressed in modern clothing, adorned with tempting sapphires and various pieces of jewelry. Upon closer inspection, Nick realized in horror they were the missing people who had vanished in the forest over the past few years. What he didn't know was that a primitive tribesman had been silently watching him from behind, waiting for the right moment. Panicking, Nick turned and bolted, knowing full well the consequences of trespassing into forbidden territory. As he jumped into the kayak and prepared to leave, the tribespeople seemed to vanish without a trace. But before Nick could fully react, a brutal scene unfolded. Elsewhere, Jasmine and the others still hadn't found any trace of Richie. They unknowingly wandered into a cave where the cold and eerie atmosphere gave them the chills. Just as Jasmine spotted a helmet and was puzzled by it, someone suddenly jumped out from behind. It was Richie. He explained that he'd woken up early that morning, saw everyone still asleep, and decided to venture off alone out of boredom. He had never believed the cannibal tribe stories in the first place. Ajay agreed, claiming it was just a scare tactic Nick used on women, and even flexed his muscles, boasting that even if there were cannibals, they wouldn't be a match for him. They laughed off Nick's warnings, completely unaware that he had already fallen victim to the threat. When they reached the planned destination and saw no sign of Nick, they assumed he had simply chickened out and left. It wasn't until their return journey, when they found Nick's kayak smeared with blood, that Ajay finally realized something was very wrong. The other three noticed smoke rising from a campfire on the riverbank and curiously approached. Inside the pot, something was boiling. What they saw next made their blood run cold. It was Nick's severed head. Only then did they truly believe in the existence of the cannibal tribe. Terrified, they tried to flee, but a massive dead tree blocked their path. Luckily, the water in this area was shallow. They attempted to slide the kayak beneath the tree, but as Ajay returned to fetch something, disaster struck. The others rushed to help, abandoning the drifting kayak. Together, they fought back, and Maya finally managed to strike their attacker in the head with a heavy rock. What they didn't know was that other tribespeople had witnessed everything. Their chances of escaping alive had now dropped to near zero. Worse still, the kayak had floated away with the current and tumbled off a cliff along another branch of the river. Even more shockingly, the cannibal tribe showed no mercy even toward their own kind. Now unarmed, the survivors had no choice but to flee through the dense jungle, relying solely on their instincts to find a way out. But without a compass, they soon found themselves completely lost. By nightfall, they were still trapped in the forest, filled with an overwhelming sense of dread. Maya tried to reassure everyone that, according to Nick, they were still relatively safe for now. For the time being, they could only survive on wild fruit and wait until morning to plan their next move. Richie suggested taking turns standing guard so that everyone could stay alert. As midnight approached, Ajay, already irritable, grew even more agitated from the constant mosquito bites. Seeing that everything was calm and quiet, he wandered off to the riverside. He smeared himself head to toe in mud, hoping it would ward off the mosquitoes. Eventually, he lay down in the sludge, completely covered, and finally found some peace. Relaxed, Ajay slowly drifted off to sleep. Sometime later, a pair of bare feet suddenly appeared beside him. It was a member of the cannibal tribe searching the area for the others. Thankfully, in the darkness, he didn't notice Ajay hidden beneath the mud. Though the tribesman's footsteps were quiet, Ajay still sensed something was wrong. As the intruder searched nearby, Ajay quietly stood up behind him. In that critical moment, Richie came charging in at lightning speed from behind. Unfortunately, he was no match for the tribesman in terms of strength. After only a few brief clashes, Richie was brutally beaten. In the chaos, Ajay slipped and tumbled down a slope, slamming his head and losing consciousness. As expected, Richie was dragged back to the tribe's camp and became their next meal. Everything happened so fast there was no time to react. Jasmine couldn't accept that her boyfriend had just vanished before her eyes. The remaining three had no choice but to keep searching for a way out. But every step they took was being secretly watched by the tribe. When Maya sensed danger, they all panicked and fled in terror. To them, the cannibal tribe had become an omnipresent nightmare. They could not escape their territory no matter where they ran. Chased and cornered, the trio blindly ran ashore and scattered in all directions. In the chaos, Jasmine accidentally fell into a trap set by the tribe. A sharpened stake pierced her left arm, rendering her unable to move. AJ used all his strength to tear down a hanging vine, racing against time to lower Maya into the pit and rescue their trapped companion. Thankfully, the operation was pulled off without a hitch. Before the cannibal tribe could discover them, Ajay had already managed to pull both women safely out of the trap. What gave them a glimmer of hope was the fact that they had been following the river's path, and eventually, they found one of their lost kayaks downstream. Everything seemed to be turning in their favor. But just as they waded into deeper waters preparing to escape, AJ was stunned to find that the cannibal tribe had already laid an ambush. His girlfriend hurriedly told him to come up, but Ajay was lost in thought. He remembered what his girlfriend had said earlier. The cannibal tribe would keep everyone alive until they were hungry. With that in mind, Ajay made a bold and heartbreaking decision. He chose to stay behind alone, buying time for the others to escape. And so, the brave Ajay fell into a pool of his own blood. What was supposed to be a joyful holiday had now turned into a complete tragedy. In the final moments of the story, as they drifted slowly downstream, the sound of laughter echoed from atop a nearby cliff. Maya's eyes lit up with a glimmer of hope for survival. She hurried to wake the unconscious Jasmine. If they could just climb to the top, there was a chance they might be rescued. Dragging their exhausted bodies, the two began to climb with everything they had left. Through determination and teamwork, and after a long, grueling effort, they finally reached the summit. The moment they saw a group of tourists in the distance, they were finally able to breathe a sigh of relief. Their horrifying ordeal over the past few days had, at last, come to an end.